Anita was just having an act of compassion, giving water to thirsty pigs. She shouldn't be in front of a court system.
The mischief trial of an Ontario woman drew national, even international attention this week. In a way, the issue is simple. When Anita Kreintz poured bottled water into a truck carrying pigs to slaughter, did she break the law? But simple hardly describes the emotions unleashed or the issues at stake about the treatment of animals and Canada's food supply. We'll talk about those issues in a moment, but first, a little background.
Can you give this guy some water?
God, put water in there. These are not humans. You know what? Now we're going to call the cops.
Anita Kreintz was charged for something she's been doing for years with Toronto Pig Save, a group that holds so-called vigils outside slaughterhouses.
For me, this trial is about the golden rule. We should treat others as we'd like to be treated. Pigs are not property, they're not stuff.
But beyond the spectacle, the trial is raising questions about animal welfare during transport. Cattle are shipped from right across the country for slaughter in Alberta. Under Canadian law, cows can travel 52 hours without food, water, or rest. For pigs, it's 36 hours. Compare that to the UK, where the law says that animals can't go more than 8 hours without food or water while in transit. But some farmers say they know the animals better than any activist.
I'm the one that's up with them. I'm the one that knows these animals inside out. Personally, I've seen what their state is when they have made that trip from Ontario, for instance, and they're fine.
So with such polarized perspectives, can a middle ground ever be reached? Joining us to talk about the issues in Ottawa, Barbara Cartwright is CEO of the Canadian Federation of Humane Societies. And in Regina, Ryder Lee, he's the CEO of the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association. Ryder, let's begin with you to paraphrase one of the people we heard in that pack. What about the golden rule? What about treating livestock as we would want to be treated ourselves?
Well, it's the same. Every day you have farmers and ranchers doing everything they can to make the lives of their animals work out all right. And it's the same when they're shipping them, whether it's to another pasture on their own place or to another owner or to a slaughter plant. They want them to get off at the other end in good shape. It's why they are who they are. They care for their animals.
And Barbara, what do you think of that?
I definitely think do unto others as we would have done to ourselves is important. We know from animal welfare science that likely transport is the most stressful thing that a farmed animal is going to undergo for several reasons, and we can tell that by many different markers, whether it's respiration or it's heart rates or it's cortisol, different stress hormones in their bloods. There's been a number of studies done. And so it's beholden upon us, those that are moving those animals, to ensure that they aren't given any extra stress, that we do our utmost to make sure that they aren't suffering as they make that final journey.
So, Ryder, let's talk a little bit about the Canadian rules. Pretty well everyone I know, and to be fair, the people I've heard talk about this are not in the industry, but when they hear that 52-hour limit for cattle being transported in Canada, that they don't need water or rest for up to 52 hours, you know, to most of us, that just sounds wrong, maybe even inhumane. What is it that we're not understanding about that?
Well, there's lots of things that sound different. I mean, having 4 stomachs is not the human condition either. So it's a number that people point to a lot that I don't think points to the right thing. And the right thing to me is outcomes for the animals. And that's what cattle producers, hog producers, poultry producers aim for every time, is a good outcome for their animals, because that's a good outcome for the farmer. And you know, it's easy to hold up a number and say, well, this number is bigger than the UK's number. Well, Canada is multiple times bigger than the United Kingdom. So try driving for 8 hours in the UK. It's easy to make that kind of a rule because that's how big the place is. But as far as doing things that produce good outcomes for cattle and the rest of the animals that we eat, we're doing a great job in Canada. And 95% of cattle trips are less than 30 hours. So even having that number, it doesn't come into play very often.
And so, Barbara, that is an interesting point that Ryder makes. And in all of this, I mean, there's some people clearly who feel that any trip to the slaughterhouse for any animal is wrong. I think a lot of other people feel that there has to be a balance here for the industry and for the animals. What's your view on, for example, the 52-hour rule for cattle?
Well, two thoughts there. One, when we're having upwards of 2 million animals arriving either unable to be slaughtered or arriving dead at slaughterhouses, it's too many. The outcomes aren't good for those animals. 52 hours is too long. Research again shows that anything over 24 hours, especially for cattle, their stress levels go up significantly. So definitely bare minimum, it should be under 24 hours. But of course, we would advocate for something along the lines of what they're doing in Europe, where it's 8 hours is the first threshold. And then after that, if they can apply for another certain amount of time based on the amount of space provided, the amount of water and food available to the animals to continue that extra part of the journey. In Canada, we have no such rules.
You know, Ryder, I know some people who are in the animal business, the livestock business, and almost to a person, they care about their animals beyond just the economic value of those. But it's easy also to start looking at those animals, of course, as a commodity, because it is part of a money-making operation. Do you think that you're saying most of those trips don't even enter the 52-hour period. They're much shorter than that. But do you think the rules, and many activists feel they do, need to be modified in Canada for transport?
Well, we're looking at it. So 99.99% of trips are successful. And if you're going to change the rules and get closer to 100%, you better be very careful and make sure you change them in a way that's going to deliver you positive outcomes. So industry isn't just looking at this and going, well, we'll see. We're spending our own dollars on research into how to do things better. So looking at the stressors of unloading versus finishing the trip, looking at, time intervals, looking at temperatures in the vehicle depending on whether you're moving or still. So this is farmer and rancher money being spent on answering these questions. We partner with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and other funders to look at these things so that if we can find a better way that does it, that produces more positive outcomes, then we'll do that. And industry has a great record of answering and picking up on new ways that actually improve things. But if you just change what's written down in the rules, that's not guaranteed to deliver you a positive change.
We have time for two last answers, one from each of you. And Barbara, let me ask you about this. We're hearing, from the industry here, but on the other side of this, you're working with the industry, your organization, to help modify rules. But you know that there are some hardline animal rights activists who probably aren't happy with any kind of compromise. What's your big challenge in trying to get them to on side?
Well, first of all, I want to just be clear that it's not just animal rights activists that are concerned about our transport regs. It's politicians, it's law enforcement, it's CFIA, it's humane societies and SPCAs across the country, and it's consumers. It is everyone that is concerned about this. And our job isn't to bring animal rights activists on side or farmers on side. Really, our role is to protect the animal welfare of those animals that we raise and slaughter for our food.
And Ryder, last word to you. What do you say to people who look at those pictures of pigs? I know you're with the Cattlemen's Association, but they look at the pigs, gulping that water down in that truck, in that incident, and feel pangs of sympathy. What do you say to people that feel that way?
Well, I'd say it's people that are raising those animals too. And when they see a bad outcome, when you have a person that has to care for something that's sick on their farm, it's a hard day for them too. So that's why we spend money on looking to do these things better, why we sit around tables with people like Barb and talk about how do we do this better and make sure that we're making change that is an improvement rather than just saying, let's change what's written down and that'll do it. We want to make real improvements all the time.
Well, it's an issue many of us don't think about as we look at our meals and don't really know where it comes from. So it's good that we have this opportunity to have this discussion, and I thank both of you.
Thank you.